Hi guys, thanks for coming to my speech. This one's called The Advantages of OS X and iOS Devices. All of us have used an Apple device before, and most of us own some. But why do we choose to buy them? As art school students, I believe that we should all know why an Apple product may help us with our daily routine. I've been an Apple fan since I was in the 6th grade, and I got my first iPod Touch. And I became fully hooked when I got my first MacBook Pro in 8th grade. It also made me fall in love with my Mac even more when I became an IT at my school, fixing all the PC problems. I want to share with people why I buy Apple products and hope that you all will become happy with them too. We all know that Apple is more expensive than PC, but do you know why that is? Maybe we should go over all the reasons that Mac computers support more productivity. Apple started as a small company out of Steve Jobs' parents' garage, and now has grown into a multi-billion-dollar company we come to know today. There are many reasons for the company's success, including quality, marketing, and their desire to try to build the best technology for the average consumer. Steve Jobs would push his employees to do the best work possible. They all did not like him at the time, but were later amazed at the work he pushed them to do. All the employees at Apple were very dedicated to making the best personal computers possible. The company was the first to make computers truly personal by using a graphical user interface, or GUI. The Xerox Alto was the first computer with a graphical user interface, but the company did not see its potential, so they abandoned the idea. But when Steve toured the headquarters and saw it, he was amazed and sure that this was the way of the future. The Lisa was the first computer made by Apple to include the GUI. Unfortunately, it was a flop, because it did not work with the other computers that Apple made, mainly the Macintosh, and it was pretty slow for the time, and it was only in black and white. Besides that, it started at a very steep $9,988. The company did not stop there and kept improving their design constantly. Steve Jobs learned a lot from his experience, and he made the Macintosh smaller and cheaper. The only problem with it was a small amount of RAM, which is updated the next model by going from 128 kilobytes to 512. Steve was once again very particular about who he would allow to make applications for the Mac, and few programmers stepped up to the challenge to perfect their applications for it. With Apple giving the first GUI on the market, Bill Gates soon stepped up and was trying to get his own version of the software that is known as Windows. Bill Gates made an agreement with Apple to keep making Microsoft software for the Mac, like Word and Excel, in exchange for being able to use Apple's technology to make their own GUI to compete with Macintosh. This is known as one of the biggest mistakes in microcomputing history, and would end in a giant feud. Even though the first version of Windows was not nearly as good as the Macintosh, Steve was still mad that Windows was trying to steal its thunder. He said it looked way too much like the Macintosh and was threatening to sue Bill Gates. This is where one of Bill Gates' most famous phrases comes from. "Hey Steve, just because you broke into Xerox's house before I did and took the TV doesn't mean I can't go in later and steal the stereo." This quote is referring to how Apple really just borrowed the technology from Xerox, who thought it was useless, and Apple had made one of the biggest changes in personal computing history. After this, the computer kept improving their designs for years. In 1989, the Macintosh Portable was the first Macintosh made to be able to take back and forth to work. It only weighed 17 pounds, had a 12-hour battery life, and was just as powerful as the Macintosh. For its time, that was an amazing feat, and the next portable computer to come out was the PowerBook in 1991. It was a portable computer with a built-in trackball to use with the GUI instead of a normal trackball that you just attach below the keyboard. It's because most laptops in the early 90s, most computers in the early 90s did not use a GUI. With all these crazy ideas for their time, Apple still is around, creating crazy new products. It even led up to the invention of the iPod, which was a miraculous device that could have a lot of songs on it without switching CDs. This little invention has changed how the world listens to music and where we buy it. Later on, they changed the way we use our cell phones with the invention of the iPhone and later the iPad. Now we all have over a million apps to access right from the App Store on our phones. Apple's newest goal is to seamlessly integrate all your devices together, either running iOS or OS X. We can now accept phone calls, texts, and FaceTime each other from our cell phones on our Macs, iPads, and of course our iPhones. With the integration, everything you do on the phone can be accessed on your iPad or Mac, so you don't have to worry about what device you have available. This can be very helpful when you're trying to finish a paper, doing research online, or just making your daily routine easier. Apple just had their most recent announcement this morning to go over some of their new products to make our daily lives even better. Some of their newest products that have been discussed include the Apple Watch and the new MacBook. The Apple Watch is Apple's newest way to get us even more integrated with our technology. The watch will get all of our notifications right on our wrist to miss less of our texts, phone calls, and other messages. The watch will also have special versions of applications like Instagram, Facebook, and countless more. During one of the previews, the speaker showed how he could even open his garage door and watch the live feed of his camera to make sure his daughter got into the house safely. It is amazing that we can now have such powerful computers right on our wrists. In a few years, it will be interesting to see if smartwatches stay around or just a fad. But Apple does have a great history of making products stay with the masses, like the iPhone or iPad. The product that Apple revealed today was their brand new MacBook. It's amazingly thin, at just above ½ an inch thick, and it's at its largest end. It is also the first fanless MacBook because of how little heat is made by the components. The new logic board on the device is 1/3 of the size on their last model, the 11-inch MacBook Air. With being able to make a computer this much smaller in a year is an amazing task for any company. It just shows the ingenuity of the designers at Apple, being able to make things smaller, lighter, and more powerful constantly. Now that we have talked about the progression of the company, we should go over how this information affects you. Most users just want technology that works without any problems, so they don't even have to think about it. Sadly, I don't think that will ever happen, but the closest I've been to is with my iPhone and MacBook. Computers will always have errors from coding or hardware malfunctions. This is why we have updates for our technology constantly, so it can always be improving the way that it works. I know many people with PCs are actually scared to update their computers because the change usually brings more problems where the software and hardware are not always completely compatible. This brings up another reason why Apple's software is much better. Because they are the main company to make their computers to work perfectly with their software. This is unlike Windows, where you can put their software on any computer that meets the minimum hardware requirements. There are some industries where it is necessary to use a Mac rather than PC. As I'm majoring in film and television, it's impossible for me to do my work only on a PC. Programs like Final Cut are not available on PC, and other programs like Avid are mainly used on Macintosh. But there are some times that the PC is more practical. PCs are better for animation software like Toon Boom. They're also better if you're just trying to play video games because less games are actually made in the Mac code. We have talked about why you should really consider if it is better to get a Mac or PC for your next computer. It's an easy choice for filmmakers and animation majors just because their programs are only available on one of the operating systems. My goal is to make more of you consider changing operating systems for your next computer to Mac. I was strongly against them for the longest time, but the only reason was I was misinformed about it. Next time your PC crashes and you lose your document you were working on, think about getting a Mac to have a relatively painless computing experience. Thanks guys, have a good one. I'm going to just go across again and kind of get rid of that part.
Alright.